Okay. Okay, so I'm Robert. So I'm representing the noble and proud people of Thailand. We are a public institution which has 15 years of experience in the TA field. And we started out by defining our problem definition background, which was focusing on anti-aging. So the current situation in Thailand is that in the context, what makes the issue important to us is that in the context of demographic change, the demand for anti-aging assistance is greater than the availability of such assistance. In the beginning, about what makes the issue important and what are the demands that an increasingly aging society would require. At first we started out saying that people would be demanding technologies primarily, but after a longer discussion that kind of widened to a bunch of different things, including services, human enhancement, and functional food, as we determined that some people would not necessarily be looking for a pill to reverse the aging process, but rather to age gracefully and painlessly. So in addition to a piecemeal approach to aging where you fix problems as they emerge, we thought that a more holistic approach focused on prevention and rather than reaction to aging was the proper way to go and to focus our work. So in terms of the actors, we divided them into two main groups. The first was the actors who would kind of drive forward the anti-aging agenda, and the others were the target groups who would be the recipients or main beneficiaries of those of the anti-aging technologies and other assistance options. So the central actors included pharmaceutical industry, healthcare and social care actors, manufacturers and suppliers of technologies and services, employers who would kind of be a group that would require that their employees would require certain aging technologies and things that can increase the length which their employees could continue to be productive, and also policymakers and decision makers. And then the target groups we thought were fairly straightforward: elderly people, young people who would perhaps take care of their elders, and also families we thought as a target group, although we had a debate as to how we could frame families as a target group and include them in the process of development, whether we should focus on individuals as a target group who would take care of their elders, or whether the family unit itself was a target group, but we left it as is. So when we get to the more of the technical stuff, let me go back here. So we started with writing comments under each one of the problems that we saw, and we on the scale I'll kind of talk more about the extremes, either not important or very important, rather than the middle ground. I think those are maybe the more interesting ones in the time we have. But I'll read some of the comments as well. So regarding lack of knowledge, we thought that people would like to control their lives in a way that they want to, and do not necessarily know which types of products or services that would help them achieve this. So, which is why we thought we should focus on framing the importance of the issue as assistance rather than a particular need that people might not know what they want quite yet. And then we found as a very important problem was the lack of knowledge and consequences, as this is a fairly new area and one that has much room for growth in the future. And also the comments here were not clear whether the financial consequences of the implementation of technology were greater than the increasing employment in the sector, so whether or not, say, domestic robots would be more cost effective than increasing, say, support for nursing staff or other human resources. So we'll kind of move through this since there's many. Here, lack of political awareness we found is very important to this area, as it's a kind of a long-term view for developing such technologies, and short-term view, often in a short-term policy cycle view, is often what's experienced. So increasing the political awareness that many people find this important, and your loved one's age, things like this that needs to be integrated better into the agenda. Also that a public debate is needed and forward-looking a view. As I said, it's kind of we need to integrate a more forward-looking approach, which is not always common in the process as it exists. Also, an interesting point on this was that privacy versus safety of people, with particularly with privacy versus safety related to the automation of emergency response to a health crisis would be a big, good issue for public debate, as some of these automated services might include cameras in your home or monitors on your heart or chest that would signal an emergency response, and treating this data with care was seen as an important issue to be addressed. Moving through. We started with putting comments in and then realized the time was quite restrained, so we kind of skimmed through some of these and just answered on the slider. But so for follow-up activities will be needed, yes. This is a very new area which needs to, which if policies are developed now, will need 5, 10, 15 year reviews to see whether or not they were effective in the long term, determine their effectiveness, safety, and so forth. Okay, so that was our first metrics that we used, and then regarding our role selection and how we thought we could address, or our role in addressing some of these issues. This is the overall view. And here are the specific views of our roles. So here, and on knowledge mapping and distribution, we viewed that as pretty important. And also comprehensive overview on consequences, which we also thought as important, as it's not clear yet what the results of anti-aging policies and a lot of the ethical issues that will emerge during that. We viewed these as not important regarding our role in stimulating debate and resolving issues such as setting the agenda in the political debate, which we didn't want to set that agenda. We wanted to introduce it into the debate but not set the agenda. Again, we originally, when we were filling these out, were very over-optimistic about what we thought we could achieve, and ended up going back to review what we did with a more realistic view. Kind of when you think everything's important, nothing is really important. So that was a problem that we experienced, and we tried to better measure what the real core elements were that we wanted to address. So some of those, I could look at the ones that have the bigger roles here, such as this. So we saw a big role for RTA in facilitating initiatives to broaden public debate or dialogue. That was one of the most important roles we saw, and I'll get to the methods about how we foresee doing that in just a second. Okay. And then regarding most of the rest of these, our role, as you can see on the bottom, pretty minimal, except here, assessment of existing policies, which we thought is important. And we did this in a kind of a backwards way, I think, compared to how the tool is supposed to be used. Rather than picking methods and then assessing whether or not we thought they were, or whether the system thought they were effective, we kind of went right to the scoring phase and saw which ones we thought the system thought would be the most effective for us, and picked those and kind of tried to, we picked 3 in the beginning, scenario building, expert panels, and citizen, let's see, where is that? We kept that one. Oh no, scenario building, we ended up picking, and citizen summit. So the 2 that we ended up picking with help from the system were these 2, and we were debating whether or not to pick 1 or 2 methods. We decided on 2, that we could combine 2 by including a citizens panel in the beginning to help serve as an information feed to the scenario building phase. So that's what we did in a nutshell. So questions I'm happy to answer any.